Welcome back to the APUSH DIG. Our topic this week is the era we call Reconstruction, the period after the Civil War. The South had been defeated. Now was the time to put the country back together. But how? Would the Confederate States just come back as they were when they seceded? Would they be conquered territories? And what would the ending of slavery entail? What would freedom look like? And further, what would the federal government's role be in defining and protecting freedom for the formerly enslaved people? Let's look at the historical big picture. Reconstruction and the Civil War ended slavery. It altered relationships between the states and the federal government, and it led to debates over new definitions of citizenship, especially talking about the rights and equal protection for African Americans. Slavery was destroyed. The Northern economy and its Hamiltonian manufacturing and finance vision had won out against the agrarian South. During Reconstruction, the federal government expanded its scope and authority in ways it had never before. First, we have the all-important 3 Reconstruction amendments to the Constitution. Our Constitution, which is so notoriously difficult to amend, was amended 3 times during Reconstruction. Evidence of both the determination and authority of the radical Republicans in Congress and the absence of Southern congressional opposition. First was the 13th Amendment. It prohibited slavery in the United States. Then the 14th Amendment, which gave African Americans citizenship. And 15th Amendment, black men could now vote. In addition to the 3 amendments, other successes of this Reconstruction period include the expansion of democracy and an establishment of equal protection under the laws. Black schools and universities were constructed. Medical care was expanded. Black men were elected to over 2,000 public offices, including the national legislature. And the autonomy of black communities and black institutions like the church rise up. However, there were devastating failures to Reconstruction that we cannot ignore. These include, first, Reconstruction ultimately failed because of the determined Southern racism and resistance and the North's waning resolve. When an economic crisis struck in 1873, many politicians took their focus off of Southern Reconstruction and focused more on propping up the capitalist financial interests in Northern states. This allowed the Southern Redeemer class of politicians to fill that vacuum, determined to bring back their white supremacist planter aristocracy. The federal government never redistributed land to black families. During the Civil War, General William Sherman issued a famous field order that would give black families 40 acres of land and a mule. But the first president during Reconstruction, the white supremacist Andrew Johnson, rescinded that order. He was determined to not take land away from white planters and give that to black families. The federal government did not effectively stop Southern states' efforts to limit freedom and to create legal restrictions for African Americans. Southern states enacted black codes, including creating a convict labor system and to restrict the freedom and movement of black people throughout the South. Also, through terror and through legal tricks like poll taxes and literacy tests, the number of black men voting fell precipitously in the years following 1877. The rule of the planter aristocracy continued. Southern plantation owners continued to own the majority of the region's land, even after Reconstruction. Former slaves sought land ownership, but generally fell short of being able to be self-sufficient. And a new system, an exploitational system called sharecropping, arises, and it limited black people's access to owning land. All of this contributed to the continuing white supremacy after the Reconstruction era ended with the removal of the last troops from the South in 1877. Segregation was protected by the Plessy versus Ferguson case and the false notion of separate but equal facilities. White terrorism was on the rise, and the steady stripping away of African Americans' rights. Finally, let's reflect on some big change during this Reconstruction era from 1865 to 1877. Reconstruction marks the first example of a period of an active federal government intervening in the affairs of the states in order to improve the conditions of the most vulnerable people. American democracy expands through birthright citizenship and the equal protection under the law, 14th Amendment, and the expansion of the vote to black men, 15th Amendment. However, land is never redistributed, thus ensuring the continued economic supremacy of the white planter class. In the 1870s, Northerners in Congress lost their resolve to continue enacting change in Southern states. This retreat leads to the rise of the Redeemers in the South and the resurgence of white supremacist rule.